well, hopefully I didn't ramble too much. Right, our earliest memory. Well, I guess how I got into music was, I don't know, but my family's like big into music. Like, my parents aren't really musicians, but my dad would, like, he had an electric guitar sitting around at home and he was always like blasting out. We used to call it like his Sunday morning music when he was doing like his like paperwork and stuff. He'd be listening to like some AC/DC or some Led Zeppelin and stuff like that. So I guess the interest kind of came about particularly for rock music via my dad, you know, and he'd bust out his electric guitar from like time to time. But like we listened to music a lot in our household. Like one of the ones that we all bonded over and loved was Earth, Wind and Fire, of all the groups. But we had this like one cassette that we just like bought on a family holiday and like burned out, you know, from just listening to it on repeat. And yeah, so I mean, there was always like a love for music very early on. And I've always been like a very obsessive person. I have like obsessions, like as you know, most kids kind of do. But mine moved to music quite early on. I'd say sort of around the age of sort of 9 or 10. I sort of became, you know, like fixated on, well, Slipknot was the band that I was obsessed with, if I'm honest. Yeah, exactly. You know, after the self-titled came out and then Iowa, I mean, it was, yeah. I mean, that's, yeah. Those are the kind of key points for me, I guess I'd say, sort of. Yeah, starting with my dad and his rock music and having a guitar, family listening to music a lot at home, and then Slipknot. Those are the kind of things that are like key in my head that got me into music, basically. So me and Justine like together as a couple. So we started the band just as like a recording project. We were like inspired by Agoraphobic Nosebleed and, you know, drum machine projects. We were just like, oh, okay, cool. We want to do something like that. So we did 2 EPs, just me and Justine, and at that point we were like, oh no, we really want to like do this as a whole band and, you know, play some shows. So I was at university just back where we're from, and I put up on like, you know, the sort of forum, you know, band looking for drummer, and Robbie got in touch with us, and, you know, he was just like, yeah, he was looking for the same thing. He just wanted to join a heavy band, and so the three of us started jamming together. And then our first bass player was just like an old friend of mine who just wanted to, he'd never been in a band before, played like bass and guitar for years. So I was just like, well, you know, get involved with this. And that was the earliest sort of formation of the band. It was me, Justine, Robbie, and our original bass player, Toddy, who unfortunately was only with us for a short spell, but like, we got some good uses out of him before he left. Recording wise, I think this is the longest we've been in the studio, because we were just like, not that it's ever been rushed before, but it's always been like kind of cutting it fine, like last day, like quick, get the last little, like, you know, not silly bits in, but it's like the last day you just, you know, extra lead lines, we might hit a keg or something like that. So I think we're in for just over 2 weeks this time, which I guess in the grand scheme of things isn't like crazy long. And just to be fair, we only just got it all done in that time frame as well. So yeah, I think it was just over 2 weeks. We're recording. I don't really recall anything like being particularly problematic. Like everything kind of flowed. It's particularly at this point as well. Like being our third album, we were all pretty well rehearsed at being like in the studio, so everyone was kind of used to, you know, being under pressure and not kind of getting the whole red light syndrome. So there wasn't really any issues. I mean, the only problem I faced was actually after recording, because I left all of my vocals to the last day, which I usually do because it's kind of like a lower priority. But on this album, I do sort of more than I have done on previous records, and it just killed my voice. And we had to go on tour like the next week, so yeah, it took forever for my, like, I could get away with it, like just doing like vocals, but it took a while for my voice to come back after recording. It's a difficult one, because I guess they kind of all do like in their own way. I guess the ones that I was, you know, really stoked on and kind of like, not defined the album, but like kind of helped push it in the sort of direction of the theme and overall vibe are the title track, Eternal Forward Motion, Harsh Truth. And I've got a soft spot for Force Fed, because Force Fed was like a song that was written literally like, I wrote it like as it was going to be on album 4, so it was like the album was already written and we had another song instead of Force Fed. And then I wrote this song and I was just like, oh no, like I really want to put this on this album. So Force Fed's kind of special because it's kind of that last minute like one that just kind of snuck in and ended up being the first single, so I'm glad it did. Well, we sent a tweet out to Denzel Curry, like trying to like hook up at Glastonbury doing the Balls on Parade like cover, but don't know if we're going to make it work. But I don't know. There's so many people I'd like to collaborate with. I mean, good friends of ours and the band we've toured with loads. We've always liked sort of thought about the idea of doing something with Rolo Tomasi would be like really cool, and they've like collaborated with bands like in the past because they're like a band that it's kind of weird and very different from us, but then also there's similarities at the same time, so it could be kind of cool to do something with them. But I don't know, that's a real tough one for me. A bit like so busy one for festivals, so like the usual sort of round off, like we got Slam Dunks next, followed by All Points East, and then we do Hellfest, Glastonbury, Gerald Air, and then sort of wrap up the summer with Arctangent. So we're super stoked and excited about all of that because all of those festivals are, awesome. So we're very excited to be on the bill. So that's like the summer, and then we've got some stuff in the works for like later in the year that's going to be announced soon. But it's just keeping busy, really.
Excellent.
Earth, Wind and Fire, just Earth, Wind and Fire. For me personally, like a lot on this record, a lot of the influences were, I mean, obviously Slipknot's one that I definitely have to like cite because, growing up they were like the biggest thing for me. Other ones I'd have to say are Fear Factory, like particularly like Demanufacture, 9 Inch Nails. Even like there's some bands that like particularly 9 Inch Nails you might not listen to us and kind of go, oh, that's, they don't sound anything like 9 Inch Nails, but Harsh Truth was like off the back of listening to lots of 9 Inch Nails and Godflesh, and it was like, oh, we kind of want like a kind of, not that it's industrial, but like that beat when it comes in is kind of like all super compressed and distorted, and it was bands like that kind of influenced us to do that. So yeah, Fear Factory, 9 Inch Nails, Rage Against the Machine to an extent. I'd say those are the sort of the key ones on this record. Just, I mean, like same as any age, I guess. I mean, it's tougher now, like for sure, because the industry is like a completely different ball game to what it was, 20 years ago, and everyone knows that. But just, it sounds like the worst and naffest advice, but just keep cracking on and just do it. And if you want to do it, then go do it. You gotta work hard. You know what I mean? This is like, if you're getting into this because you want to like make loads of money like real quick and stuff, then go find something else, because you've got to have that sort of burning desire to want to make and play music. And if you have that, then just keep going for it. Just keep smashing it out and keep busy and just
Excellent.
I mean, the thing is, and I'm not just saying it because we are in Glasgow, but Glasgow is definitely up there. I don't know if I can pick one, but Glasgow's definitely like in the top tier, along with like London's always like, because that's the closest thing we kind of do for like a hometown show. But I'd say it's between Glasgow, London, and maybe, I'm trying to think where else in the UK. Maybe Nottingham, I reckon. It's between those three, but I couldn't pick just one. There's been like lots of weird things that have happened, and I kind of get confused with stuff that's happened in other bands as well. Because did I write for you that story about my other band where I got So that's probably hands down the craziest thing that's ever happened to me in any band. But with ETS, craziest thing. I mean, I say the worst thing. The most tedious thing that's ever happened to us as a band was probably on a very early tour we did with the other band I play in, Renounced. We were coming back from tour. It was all over and it finished, and then the van broke down in Antwerp, and it was like, repairing it was going to cost like 4,000 euros or something crazy. So we were kind of stranded there, and our breakdown cover wouldn't take us all the way back home. So they charged us, I think it was about 800 euros to tow us from Antwerp to Calais. And then we had to get on the ferry, and then we had to pay to be towed from Dover back to Woking. So it's not probably the weirdest thing that's happened to us, but that's definitely, to this day, the worst thing that's happened to us. But we came back from it, and we still wanted to go back on tour, so it can't have been that bad, I suppose. But that was a tedious and very long trip home for sure. Well, I was going to say, I'll start with what we were playing today. So we were listening to Val today, because they put out like about 1 million records last year. I think it was Inconsolable we were listening to. Then we were listening to some Crowbar, and then we were listening to Dragged Into Sunlight before that. And I'm having a bit of a weird phase with listening to Guar at the moment. Like, I haven't listened to them in so long, and I went down a YouTube rabbit hole the other day. So I had some Guar playing this morning with some mixed reviews from people in the back. But I'm driving, so I get to play what I want. So yeah, so we had that Crowbar, Dragged Into Sunlight, Thou. Who else were we jamming today? It was a long old drive. I'm trying to think. Last couple of days we've had Down playing. Who else have we had on the go? Well, those have been sort of like the main ones I think going at the moment. That and like listening to some. Me and Justine got back from Roadburn the other week and saw Emma Ruth Rundle play there, so I've been playing a lot of Emma Ruth Rundle since coming back from Roadburn as well. But yeah, all sorts really. Oh, right, now I can really dish out the dirt, because I'm perfect. I haven't got any bad habits. Everyone loves me, and I don't get on anyone's nerves whatsoever. So, well, actually, I'll talk about the worst thing on this tour. Robbie's feet stink. He does this whole thing of like not wearing socks with his shoes, so obviously his feet just smell like just rotting flesh. Luckily today he has kind of like gone, okay, enough's enough, and he's gone to Primark and bought new shoes and new socks, because like, my god, the smell of his shoes this morning was just like grotesque. Yeah, I wouldn't wish that stench upon anyone. Oh yeah, 100%. But it's kind of like a mixture of sort of anxiety and excitement. So the two are quite, easy to kind of get, mixed up with which one's which. But yeah, totally. Before every show as well, and it doesn't matter what show it is. Like, it could be one of the bigger ones we do, or it could be like playing to like a totally new audience, and there's only a couple of people there to see us. It's like. But I always get it, and like I think that's like perfectly natural, and it's kind of part of the fun of it as well. I think if that ever fully goes away, then I don't know. I think the kind of excitement of playing live is kind of gone. You kind of want to have that kind of anxious feeling before you go on stage. Like before going on last night in London, we were all like, oh my god, like fuck, this is the biggest headline show we've ever done. But that kind of feeds into the adrenaline, so it's a good thing.
And just on.
Yeah, it's a funny one. It's better, particularly at the moment as well, with so many big names in music, particularly like rock as well, who've taken their own lives. It's a bit of an eye opener, and I guess if there's any sort of positive thing that can be taken away from the likes of like Chris Cornell's death and Keith Flint's death, is that like it's all very well and good to have these aspirations of being in a big band and stuff, and that shouldn't stop you from wanting to do it, but you have to kind of look at these characters who obviously had their demons and had kind of what most musicians saw as it all, what I mean? I'm sure most people wish they were in the Prodigy or wish they were in Soundgarden. I mean, I wish I could sing like Chris Cornell, fucking hell. But like, it just goes to show that you can have all those things, but like, unless you really take care of you and make time for making sure that you're okay, and if there isn't music, you have to view music as something that like you just do. It's not the be all and end all. You've got to make sure you're okay to fully enjoy what you want to achieve in music. Otherwise you're going to get, potentially, if you do make it big, if you haven't taken time to take care of yourself, then you know it can be all for nothing. You can be at the top and still be unhappy.